What's going on, guys? I'm Tommy and I'm coming at you with an action figure review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Hasbro The Black Series May the 4th Be With You Stormtrooper. I will say this is probably one of the most controversial Black Series releases in recent memory, probably in the last several years. This was originally revealed by yakface.com. Check out his original release for getting this figure, finding it on Walmart's database, and having them actually send it to him once he ordered it. This is something that is definitely in the same vein as your seasonal holiday figures, like the holiday editions, the Halloween editions, and then earlier in 2026, the Valentine's Day edition. There are some questionable choices about how they decided to execute this particular commemorative release. We're going to cover all of that throughout this review. I did obviously pick this up on an order through Walmart's app. I got the link from Yakface. I don't believe that this has officially been put up for order yet. I think the listing just got put up, so if you want to stay in the loop on, when this listing comes back, check out Yakface on Instagram. That's where I get most of my in-stock alerts. This figure is a Walmart exclusive here in 2026, and it features the standard style of packaging for the Black Series, but the way the packaging looks is a little bit different. First thing to note here is that as opposed to just the standard black backdrop for all of the sides of the packaging, you have a star field with little specks of white throughout. Up at the top here, we have our Black Series logo, which also has those little starfield specks inside of the actual words Star Wars here, and you can see the logo is done in gold as opposed to the usual gray. Down below that, we have the plastic window showing you the figure and his accessory, and you can see another accessory behind the figure there. Over here in vertical text, we have the character name, and then the window is cut out just a little bit differently to show off that May the 4th Be With You big logo that they do every year. Down below that, we have a gold banner and some logos and legalese down at the bottom. On this side of the box, where we would usually have our mural art for the character, we just have the May the 4th Be With You logo, that same star field, the wraparound banner, and the name of the character. On the back of the box here, you'll see we have some of the stuff we've already seen, like the Black Series logo. You actually get a glam shot of the figure, and then you can actually see that thing that was behind the figure on the front of the packaging looks to be some sort of target practice there with a silhouette of Han Solo. Down below that, in about 1,000 different languages, it says includes target practice. You can see over here we have the character name, and then we have a bio in about 1,000 different languages for May the 4th, saying, embrace the lighter side of the Force with limited edition figures from the Black Series. May the 4th be with you. You can see down here they have a little pew 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 sign there, and then below that, instead of saying the number for the subline that this guy is in, they're just putting 05.04 Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you. Below that we have all our legalese. Guys, please don't feed this action figure to your babies. On this side of the box we have our May the 4th logo, our wraparound window, wraparound banner, and the Black Series logo. Then at the bottom of the box we have even more legalese, and on the top we have, once again, the May the 4th Be With You logo. So with that, that's the packaging covered. So let's get this guy opened and we'll check him out. Alright guys, here is the figure. Now, the first thing I want to talk about here is part of the exclusive draw to this figure, if you will. So let me put the figure and our accessory off to the side for a moment, and we'll pull up the target practice piece. Now, you may notice I had it propped up against the back of my backdrop here, and this, to me, is very disappointing right off the bat, is the lack of functionality of this target practice. Now, I totally understand, like, this being a target that is similar to what you would use at a shooting range. This wouldn't have like any sort of kickstand or any way to prop it up, but for an action figure release, and especially because some of the promo shots of this figure showed him, like, leaned up with it, like showing off his lack of accuracy here, I would have loved if they just would have included a little piece of cardstock, just something that could have cut and held underneath here just to have this stand up on its own. Aside from that, it's just a flimsy piece of cardstock here. It is definitely a lot thinner than what we saw with the Valentine for the Valentine's Day Ewok, and I really liked how thick that cardstock was. This is super flimsy. It's super thin. It doesn't feel very high quality, and it's just very, very frustrating. So my critiques of the lack of displayability of this shooting range training piece aside, we do have a bunch of Arabesh on the top of the training piece here. You can see this says, I did translate this from Arabesh. This says Empire Training. Over here it says name, and you can see there's a blank space there for the character to put their name. Down below that it says score, and then you can put your score there, and then down below that it says distance. And again, pretty similar to what you would see on like a real shooting range. And then we have our silhouette here, and again, I do think this part is clever that they set this up like an actual shooting range target, where there's, you know, hey, they'll tell you on like a drill or something like, you know, everything has to stay within the 8, everything out of that is a miss, blah blah blah. And obviously you have the silhouette of Han Solo, and you can see that all of the blaster marks are outside of the silhouette because, ha ha ha, Stormtroopers can't aim. That's the joke. So this is completely fine, the presentation of this. My only real critique with this is the lack of like kickstand for it almost, which would have been, again, super easy to do. Just give me a little piece that can like go into the bottom of this so that you can set it up so that this trooper can actually stand next to it like he does in the promo photos. But then this is a super nitpicky thing in my opinion, but I'm still going to point it out. All of these blaster carbon scoring marks, you could see, are the exact same. They didn't rotate any of them or mirror any of them to even try to give the illusion that it's the different shape, just copy and paste it over and over. To me, that's just laziness, and I hate to call things lazy, but it's just, to me, it reads as low effort. This is a fun, gimmicky thing, and I get that it's not a part of the actual figure, but to me, it's like, really? Like, I feel like there could have just been a little more effort with this entire piece. This was honestly, for me, a very funny aspect of this wave of releases. Ultimately, I'm just kind of disappointed with it. And that's mainly because I just don't have a way to display it unless I'm just like propping it up against the back of my shelf. Setting the target off to the side, let's get back to the actual figure now. So the first thing we have here is the one accessory, the E11 blaster rifle. This is your standard issue Imperial blaster. This one is done in a gunmetal color. I know that they've been kind of jumping back and forth between doing the gunmetal color and the black color. I really don't have a preference one way or the other. This is the Mandalorian style E11. You can see by the flashlight attachment here and the extended magazine here. This is a newer version of the E11, but overall it still looks really good, and I can never complain about this accessory. And now we have our Stormtrooper here. So the big thing here with the Stormtrooper, this is the same Stormtrooper that we've gotten since 2020 when they updated the Black Series Stormtrooper. So in the way of sculpt and articulation, this is exactly the same as every previous Stormtrooper. Now, the thing that's different here, and this seems to be the thing they're doing with these May the 4th figures, are these printed soft goods t-shirts. This will be the first thing that I point out on this figure here. So you'll see here on the front of the shirt, the whole thing seems to be done in black on the outside, but if you lift the shirt up, you can see that it is only printed on the outside. It doesn't seem to be dyed in that black color, so it seems to only be printed on the outside. That, I will say, is a good thing, because if you decide to remove this shirt and you just want to have this as a Stormtrooper army builder figure, the nice thing about that is that this shouldn't stain the stark white armor. That is something that happens with Black Series soft goods sometimes, is you'll get the soft goods staining the plastic of the figure because they dye them. However, with the way that this is printed on just the outside, hopefully that mitigates that. Obviously, what they were going for with this was silly little graphic tees. That's like a staple of being a nerd, is in movies and culture, and I mean, I wear stupid Star Wars graphic tees myself. They decided to go with these little graphic tees. This one says pew 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 squad goals, with half of the Imperial cog here surrounded by a little half circle here. I don't see a problem with this. I think this is a funny little, you know, self-aware joke that they're going with on these figures, and honestly, this bothers me way less than how disappointed I ended up being with the target practice piece here. You'll see on the back they also printed on Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you, and it actually turned out pretty nice. You can see it looks pretty good on the figure. The shape and the fit of the shirt looks pretty good as well. You could probably remove this if you pop the head off the figure. You should be able to, by just lifting up the arms, remove this thing. But I will say, I'm not upset about this, and honestly, if you're going to give me a commemorative figure, I think it's fun when they do clever little things like this, and when they do soft goods, it doesn't take away from the tooling budget the same way that new sculpted pieces would. So for me, it's like no harm, no foul, and it's a fun little thing. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Now, as far as the Stormtrooper goes, I do have just one critique, and that's going to be on these carbon scoring paint apps that you can see here on the figure. I'll show off the one on the helmet first. These to me are just not it. They look very chunky, and I can't tell if it's because they're done with the dot matrix printing style of weathering as opposed to like a wash or something else, but I'm not a fan of how heavily applied they are. Generally, I don't like carbon scoring marks on my figures. I think the only time that I've ever liked it was on the Super Battle Droid that came in that Super Battle Droid C-3PO Battle Droid 2-pack from a year or two ago. But aside from that, yeah, this to me is just not my favorite. I just am not a fan of this very chunky looking carbon scoring thing. I get that if they were going for, oh, you know, the funny thing is, you know, he not only didn't hit the target, he also ended up hitting himself multiple times with blaster bolts. That to me is funny, and I think that as a whole, this makes sense as like a little joke, and this whole thing is like a gag gimmick figure, so I can only, you know, knock it so much at the end of the day. But I will say, it just, to me, it just looks a little tacky, doesn't look like the premium that we're used to with the Black Series. All of that aside, the actual Stormtrooper itself is on a nice stark white shiny plastic here for all the armor, and you could remove these paint apps probably with some acetone or maybe some nail polish remover, something like that. But the helmet, the actual details of the canonical helmet do look good here. You can see the black brow is painted across the top of the visors there. You can see all of the gray highlights are colored here with the ear cap, as well as the pieces both above and below the visors. The visors themselves are done with that very deep green tint, and I guess I have a little bit of paint rub on that left visor there, but this is the newer style of Stormtrooper, the Rogue One style of Stormtrooper, not the all-black version that you had in some of the original trilogy, because there are points in the original trilogy where they do have green tints to the lenses as well. You can see that these blue tick marks are both sculpted and painted in down here by the cheeks. You can see the frown is painted in both black and gray, and then the chin filters are painted in some black and some silver. You can see that on the back of the helmet they did also get some of the gray details there, so accurate looking overall. As for the rest of the figure, it's going to be just your standard Imperial Stormtrooper. So underneath the shirt here, they didn't get rid of any of the tooling. You still have your thin plastic overlay for the carapace of the armor here, and I gotta say, this feels a bit more malleable than what I'm used to on Imperial Stormtroopers. It feels a bit softer. You can see that they did not paint the separator between the front and back of the carapace. You can see that underneath these sleeves here, we do still have our shoulder armor, which is on the O-ring system, meaning that is connected into the torso. We do have the sculpted ribbed body glove as well, and again, our stark white armor for the trooper. You can see that there are carbon scoring blaster bolt marks on the helmet, the right bicep, the left forearm, and then the left thigh. Nothing on the back of the figure as far as that weathering style goes. You can see that his hands down here are done both with trigger fingers, so you could make this guy left-handed or right-handed. Down below that, you can see underneath the torso, we are missing some paint apps. Sometimes they paint this, sometimes they don't. The little buttons here on the front of the abdomen are sometimes done in blue and gray. However, on this figure, it's covered up, so I can honestly give it a pass for them not painting it, because this figure isn't meant to have this shirt removed. However, I will point out, they did not paint the gray details on the thermal detonator, and they tend to do that with a lot of other figures. Then again, I'll say it again, it's like this crossroads I keep finding myself between. Yes, it's a gimmick figure. Yes, it's a holiday figure, but at the same time, it's like, what do I give it a pass on and what do I not? Down below that, you'll see the belt is on a overlay system. However, it is fastened to the actual torso. You can see these cartridges on the front of the belt are malleable. Codpiece looks good. The back plate armor looks good. You see the thighs are done in that same stark white. We have that asymmetry of the legs here. And then down at the boots here, you can see they did paint the soles in almost like this almost olive green color. Maybe that's the wrong shade of green, but it's more of a green than it is a gray. That's an interesting choice there to go with that for that specific color. But overall, I mean, the Stormtrooper itself, minus the carbon scoring, looks fine. This is a fine Stormtrooper. The Black Series Stormtrooper, solid figure. And I honestly, I have to say, I think that the soft goods t-shirts, the graphic tees, are fun and they're silly. And this is what I buy holiday and gimmick figures for, because I like to celebrate the fun aspects of the holidays throughout the year. And for Star Wars Day, this is just fun. Now, as far as articulation goes, as I stated earlier, this is the same exact Stormtrooper that you get with the 2020 Stormtrooper. Any figure that's on that body, you should know what you're getting into with this one then. We do have the dumbbell joint at the top of the neck. So one ball joint goes into the top of the neck, one goes into the head. We have an additional ball joint at the base of the neck. You can see you can get some decent range out of that. We can get the figure to look down a decent amount. We can get him to look up a little bit as well. You get some good tilt, and you also get some right and some left. Underneath the soft goods and all the overlays for the torso, there is a butterfly joint there at the shoulders. You can see you can get some really nice range forward and back. That doesn't seem to be hindered at all by the soft goods t-shirt. And I'm noticing that when the light catches this right, you can actually see the armor underneath the shirt, but it is very hard to notice. We do also have a hinge and swivel at the shoulders, so the hinge gets you to about 90 degrees, pretty typical for Black Series, and once again, not being hindered by that t-shirt there. I will say they did stitch this very, very nicely. It's got a very natural looking fit. You can also swivel the shoulders technically 360 degrees, but much like Hot Toys and other figures that have soft goods clothing, it's very hard, almost impossible to get this to go all the way around. So really that's the only way that it's going to hinder the articulation, but if you were to remove the shirt here, you wouldn't have any issue getting that 360 degrees. At the elbows, we have a hinge and swivel, so that's going to get you to a little past that 90 degree mark. That's a really good range there, and we do have a swivel at the top of the elbow. Then at the wrists, we have a hinge and swivel. So at the right wrist, we have the swivel with the vertical hinge, and at the left wrist, we have the horizontal hinge. At the midsection here, we have our ball joint that's about midway through the torso, so you can see you can get plenty of range out of that. And then down at the hips, we have additional ball joints. You can see we have plenty of range there, and you can see that these cartridges just move themselves right out of the way. You could bring the legs forward about 90 degrees, but they did cleverly include a thigh swivel hidden by the thigh armor, and with that, you can move the leg out and bring the leg up even more, so you have plenty of range there. Then down at the knees, we have our single jointed hinge, so that's going to get you to a little past that 90 degree mark, which is good, and there is a swivel at the top of the knee. Then at the ankles, we have our Hasbro Classic, the forward facing pin for rocker, as well as a hinge, which gets you a little bit of forward and a little bit of back. So overall, this is pretty typical for articulation in the Black Series, and the Stormtrooper is a very good figure in the Black Series. So let's get him with his accessory in hand and get him posed up. So putting the blaster into the right hand, very easy to do. It's a good grip. You can see the trigger finger fits into the trigger guard very nicely, and it does pass the shake test. And here we've just got a basic pose for our Stormtrooper here. You can see he has one hand on the belt, one hand in the blaster, and it looks good. I mean, it poses well. It's the same figure we've had 1,000 times. You can get him to hold the blaster and get the trigger finger into the trigger guard on the left hand, but it's going to be a little bit of a looser grip, and sometimes it doesn't pass the shake test, but on my particular copy, it seems to be. And here's a little bit more of a dynamic pose with this guy. He's got the blaster in the left hand this time, and here we've got our Stormtrooper in a one-legged pose, running and gunning. And I will say the soft goods shirt does not hinder the articulation whatsoever for a pose like this, so he can't blame the shirt as to why he can't hit his target. But with that, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this review. This figure is definitely a mixed bag for me. I will say this, to me, lacks a bit of the creativity that I've been praising the recent holiday figures for. Between, again, holiday, Halloween, Valentine's Day, I've been really enjoying the 2025 releases and early 2026 releases for those. I've been feeling just a lot more creativity with those, and while I think that the idea here was fun, I think that this wasn't exactly the best in execution. I think that especially for the target for me, I think if it would have had a little kickstand, I would have been praising it a lot more. And with the figure, it's just that very clunky looking carbon scoring weathering there. But aside from that, it's a gimmick release. It's a fun little release. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's not trying to be screen accurate to anything. So in that way, I feel like I also have to kind of give it a pass. But ultimately, I'm not regretting that I bought this. It's definitely going to be a fun figure to have just around the display, especially for May the 4th, just to kind of decorate my collection with some May the 4th memorabilia, especially like a posable action figure like this. A lot more fun than just a poster or, you know, a piece of clothing or something. But I think it depends on what kind of a collector you are. If you like the fun little gimmick things, you'll probably enjoy this figure. If not, probably a pass. But with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you're an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this review early. If you'd like access to early content, monthly giveaways, and other awesome benefits, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Become an ARC Trooper for just $4.99 a month. If you're a fan of the reviews I do here on YouTube, or you just want to support the YouTube channel more directly, you could also check out my YouTube channel membership, Rancor Battalion. For just 99 cents a month, you get exclusive badges and priority replies in my comments section. You get to check out all my reviews early here on YouTube, and you get to vote on what I review next for the channel, just like the Patreon members do. If you'd like some Blitz Transmissions swag, you could always head over to the Blitz Transmissions Armory over on Printify. Link to that is in the description below, as well as links to my Discord and all my social media. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking off. All units, fire at will. 1-2, pick a target. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. You've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcement?